Oilers, 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 Oilers. And how many the with a shirt that I got through a box of cereal that everybody else tried to order after me, and I got it first. I don't just collect hockey jerseys. Okay, Edmonton, Edmonton, pain. As a Canucks fan, a lot of pain around the Edmonton Oilers. Now, Canuck fans, I know there's the nickname Coilers that I've seen. There's other derogatory nicknames. In this house, when I watched Canuck games against the Oilers, my name for the Oilers was simply fucking Oilers. It is the greatest compliment I can pay to a team to say I detest them for the way they play against my favorite team. Not that they played dirty, they just won a lot. And even when the Oilers weren't very good, and the Canucks were supposedly contenders, it didn't matter. Now, Edmonton is a team that I think holds a distinction. I don't think I've ever cheered for them in a playoff series. I'm not just saying that. I don't think I've ever cheered for them in a playoff series. And I can't think of another team that I would say that about. No, even Montreal, even Anaheim. I didn't always hate Anaheim, and I won't always hate them. But as long as that one punch wonder Kessler's out there, and every time I turn on an Anaheim game, I make either Getzlaf or Kessler score, and it makes me angry. But in terms of the Oilers, I've never cheered for them in a playoff series that I can remember, ever. Outside of, I think it was 1980 that they upset the Montreal Canadiens. And it was then that I think a lot of people realized there was something special going on in Edmonton. The funny part is, Edmonton started fire wagon hockey. Goals, 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 and more goals. Defense? Who needs defense? We're just going to keep scoring, scoring, scoring. And that was Edmonton's way of playing. And if you were their goaltender, oh my lord, you're in trouble because you're going to be facing a lot of prime opportunities because all of your defensemen, yeah, they're all up at the other end of the ice. And the Oilers in the early 80s were a lot of fun to watch, and they scored a lot of points. Everybody knows the Gretzky thing. I'm not going to talk about the Gretzky thing today because everybody knows. I'll touch on the trade, but the Gretzky thing is all well known. But the funny part is, before they won their first Stanley Cup, the statement was made, the Oilers will never win the Stanley Cup because they don't play defense. Oh, I'm old enough to remember that, boys and girls. Up until 1983, that was the refrain. They're fun to watch, but they'll never win. You can't win. You can't win without defense. They did. Repeatedly. Now, everybody loves Paul Coffey. Loves Paul Coffey. I was never a huge Paul Coffey fan. And then when he got traded to Pittsburgh, I sort of started to think, you're kind of a douchebag, aren't you? And then later on in his career, as he started moving around quite a bit, I was like, yeah, he's got to be a douchebag. He plays 10 games for any given team and then gets traded right away. He has to be a douchebag. Team looks and goes, we need an offensive defenseman. And then they get it, like their phone rings. Do you want Paul Coffey? How? How did you know I just said that out loud in my office? No reason. Do you want Paul Coffey? How many points has he scored? 11 billion. That's a lot of points. Yep. How is he defensively? 11 billion points. Can he still skate? 11 billion points. Okay. So a Paul Coffey trade would happen. And his 11 billion points would come in. And within 10 games, he'd be getting offered out somewhere else. And he was the best defenseman they had. Well, Kevin Lowe, see, this is the funny thing. The Oilers of that time, whether it's Kevin Lowe, Craig McTavish, Charlie Huddy, trying to think, there's a lot of guys who had really solid careers and were winners, but because they're associated with the Oilers of the last 10 years, they're not viewed as winners. And for the next generation coming up, they're known as losers, idiots, fools, couldn't coach their way out of a wet paper bag, like, you know, whatever you want to say about them. As players in the 80s, they were fantastic. And Kevin Lowe, Lee Fogelin, Charlie Huddy, there were some guys who tried to be defensively responsible. But it was tough because the puck was always at the other end of the rink. And then when it came down to your end of the rink, Gretzky wasn't coming back. Gretzky was not a 200-foot player. Messier in the beginning wasn't a 200-foot player. These guys didn't come back. Curry didn't come back. Anderson didn't come back. Like, you know, so you're winning games 7-4, 8-5, 9-6. This was standard in Edmonton. Edmonton eclipsed the 400-goal mark more than once. And that is just crazy when you look at scoring where it is now in the NHL. But yeah, so let's take a look at Edmonton, shall we? I'm going to use, I think somebody asked me about which book I was, somebody asked me about this book. 100 Years of Hockey. It's available online through Chapters for the same price I paid, $5. And it's got a lot of good stuff in it, considering it's $5. Like, you're going to pay that much for a bloody newspaper in some cities. And this has a lot more information than a newspaper. And I had that open to that. I don't need that now. I think there's an article back here that I want to discuss. The birth of the Edmonton Oilers. The World Hockey Association began play in the fall of 1972. And if you look at the picture here, that's pretty close to the jersey I'm sporting right now. That is the original Alberta Oilers jersey. The league was an alternative to what was seen as monopolistic practices by the NHL that restricted the growth of its players' salaries. As professional athletes began developing their business acumen, baseball's Curt Flood challenged his reserve clause that effectively bound a player to one team indefinitely. Sports unions became more rebellious, except in hockey, where the players seemed content to abide by what the owners dictated. The WHA loosened the NHL stranglehold on the players' abilities to become free agents more easily. One of the new owners in the fledgling league was Bill Hunter, the president of the Junior Western Canada Hockey League, who managed the Edmonton Oil Kings of that circuit. Wild Bill, as Hunter came to be known, invested in a team that he named the Oilers, while Scotty Munro, owner and general manager of the Junior Calgary Centennials, backed the Broncos that were to play in their city. But the WHA Broncos never came to pass as Munro's business partner had to withdraw his support for health reasons. As a result, Hunter's team was named the Alberta Oilers, with the intention of splitting the games between Edmonton and Calgary, given that the latter city was now without a team. The first ever WHA game was played on October 11th, 1972, and Alberta defeated the Ottawa Nationals 7-4. The plan to divide home games between the two Alberta cities didn't come to fruition, and the team was renamed the Edmonton Oilers as originally intended to start the next season. Calgary did receive a WHA team in 1975 when the Vancouver Blazers franchise transferred. Without question, the most significant acquisition in Oilers history took place in November 1978 when Indianapolis Racers owner Nelson Skalbania traded Wayne Gretzky, goalie Eddie Mio, and forward Peter Driscoll to Edmonton in a cash deal. That's a steal, eh, Eddie Mio? What a legend. The Racers folded a few weeks later. Meanwhile, the 18-year-old wonder kid from Brantford, Ontario, isn't it Wonderkind? Racked up 104 points in 72 games for the Oilers, who made it to the Avco Cup Finals. Edmonton dropped the 6-game series to Winnipeg in the deciding game. Oilers forward Dave Semenko scored the last ever goal in the WHA. In the fall of 1979, Edmonton, along with Winnipeg, Hartford, and Quebec, was part of the merger that saw 4 WHA teams enter the NHL as the former league dissolved. Despite its brief existence, the WHA was influential in ensuring that the game's best players were paid fairly and competitively, removing the shackles to which NHL players had previously been bound. Which made Montreal a damn good team because everybody in Quebec belonged to the Montreal Canadiens. True, look it up. Best game ever in Edmonton. May 31st, 1987. Of all Of all of Edmonton's 5 Stanley Cups during the team's dynasty, the most highly contested finals took place in 1987. That was a great series. The Philadelphia Flyers were looking for a payback after falling to Wayne Gretzky's squad in the finals 2 seasons prior. Edmonton with 106 points and Philadelphia with 100 were the only 2 teams to reach the century mark of points during the regular season. That was when 100 points meant something. You go, my team got 100 points. Pretty damn good. Now it doesn't really mean anything. It's just a number. Rookie goaltender Ron Hextall was outstanding in the Flyers' net. The Brandon, Manitoba native led the league in regular season wins with 37, save percentage at .902. Think about that for a second. And minutes with 3,799. His task was to stop the Oilers' juggernaut that boasted 3 of the NHL's top 4 scorers: Gretzky, Jari Kurri, and Mark Messier. Edmonton sprung to a 3-1 series lead before Philadelphia roared back with 2 stunning wins to even the series. Flyers defenseman J.J. Daigneault, who played for Montreal and played for Vancouver as well, sent the Spectrum fans into a frenzy with a late winning goal in Game 6 to force the decisive 7th game at Northlands Coliseum. And I was so hoping the Flyers would win that. I was really pulling for the Flyers because I love an underdog. And the Hextall story was fantastic that year. In that game, the Flyers drew first blood on the power play early on as Philadelphia executed some nifty tic-tac-toe passing. Doug Crossman at the right point found Pelle Eklund near the face-off dot. Eklund passed to Murray Craven, one of my favorite players, who beat Grant Fuhr from a bad angle to open the scoring at 141. 6 minutes later, the Oilers tied the game. Glenn Anderson sidestepped Lindsey Carson at center ice and burst into the Flyers zone. He passed to Kent Nilsson, streaking down the left wing. Nilsson spotted Mark Messier on the right side behind the Flyers' defense. Messier buried the puck past Hextall for the equalizer. From there, the Oilers began to take control of the game. Messier hit the goal post before the first period was over, raising his arms in premature celebration even as play continued. In the second period, Jari Kurri converted a pass from Gretzky, firing a dart past Hextall at 14:59 to put the Oilers ahead. Over the final 20 minutes, Edmonton stifled Philadelphia at every turn. With just over 2.5 minutes to go, Anderson, as he'd done in the first period, carried the puck into Philadelphia's end. Using Crossman as a screen, Anderson wired the puck through Hextall's pads to score an insurance marker. With a 3-1 win, the Oilers claimed their 3rd championship in 4 years. Hextall was named the Conn Smythe winner in a losing cause. Edmonton's Steve Smith, whose costly own goal eliminated his team the previous year, was the first teammate to receive the Stanley Cup from Captain Gretzky, which was a very nice gesture. Just like it was a very nice gesture from Steve Smith to hand the puck away. It was very, very friendly of him. Great rivalries. And this page is important to me because there's my Oilers jersey with Cujo. And this jersey is as close as I have handy right now to the one that Cujo wore. You mean I've got 5 Oilers jerseys? I have 5 Oilers jerseys. 5. That's the right colors. I have the other jersey that... This is going to drive me nuts. I have 5 Oilers jerseys. I have this one. And there I found this one. And of course, my Taylor Hall jersey. I don't know how I feel about that, okay? Give me a second. Just give me a second. We're already up to 14 minutes and I'm sorry. I haven't even got up to the reason I'm depressed all the time. I talk about the Oilers. And of course, Oilers fans, anybody under the age of 20 that's an Oilers fan, be like, what's he? Listen. Oilers. Okay, so now that I've found this jersey, which is the one that Curtis Joseph is sporting in this picture, and proven that I have 5 Oilers jerseys. That's when you know you're out of control. This video will someday be used as one of my 12-step things. I'll use this to say this is when I knew I had a problem. See, And I tried to cheer for the Oilers when Cujo was there. I tried, and I loved Ryan Smith, and I tried. And then there was always some reason I couldn't. Great rivalries. Edmonton versus Dallas. While not historic adversaries or even geographic rivals, the Edmonton Oilers and Dallas Stars became familiar foes during a 5-year stretch between 96-97 and 2000-2001, during which time they met every year in the playoffs. I used to call that fun time. Remember, I'm a Dallas fan. The 1997 Western Conference quarterfinals was a seeming mismatch. Edmonton, the 7th seed, had finished the regular season with a sub-500 record, 23 points behind Dallas. But the resilient Oilers managed to force a 7th game at Northlands Coliseum after overtime goals by Kelly Buchberger and Ryan Smith helped keep them in the series. Game 7 also went to sudden death after 3 periods. Dallas forward Joe Nieuwendyk appeared to have an open net to clinch the series, but he was denied by a miraculous save by Edmonton goalie Curtis Joseph. I just call him Cujo, who dove from his left to his right to make a highlight reel save on Nieuwendyk. Moments later, Todd Marchant skated around defenseman Grant Ledyard down the right wing and scored on a breakaway against goal on Andy Moog to send the Oilers on to the next round. And I hated it. I was angry. That's the only time they beat Dallas. Dallas earned a measure of revenge the following season after eliminating Edmonton in 5 games. Benoit Hogue scored the only goal of Game 3 in overtime. The defensive-oriented series was one in which neither team scored more than 3 goals in any game. In 1999, the two teams played one of the most highly contested series to end in a 4-game sweep. The President's Trophy winning Stars won each of the first 3 games of the opening round by just a single goal. By the time the puck dropped in Game 4, Dallas was missing several key regulars, including Pat Verbeek, Guy Carbonneau, and Richard Matvichuk. We wanted to give the Oilers a chance, so we'd sit one out each game. Take a night off. We got the Oilers. We got this. The Oilers weren't about to roll over, playing their opponents to triple overtime. I'm kidding. Okay, don't go in the comments. I'm just kidding. At 17:34 of the 6th period, Sergei Zubov's point shot bounced off Nieuwendyk's leg into the net past a heartbroken goalie Tommy Salo to complete the sweep. And Tommy Salo was heartbroken a lot as a goaltender. I tell you. Next year, somebody else can play this team, said Stars coach Ken Hitchcock after the game. I mean, we've just about had it with these guys. Dallas went on to win his first cup in franchise history that year. However, Hitchcock's desire not to face Edmonton in 2000 went unfulfilled. Once again, the Dallas Stars and Oilers dueled in the first round. Dallas took the series in 5 games on the way to the second straight finals appearance. The Stars were defeated by New Jersey in a 6-game series. The run of familiarity ended with a Stars 6-game conference quarterfinals win over the Oilers in 2001. So that's why I said, like, every year it was first round. Oh, Edmonton. Yeah, we got this. The one year that Edmonton beat us was rough. But after that, it was fun. And it was fun because every year that Dallas knocked out Edmonton, I felt like the Canuck fan in me from when I was a child was vindicated. Because a lot of those Stanley Cup victories, their first round matchup would have been the Canucks. Or, whoever. Because the Smythe division was made up of primarily Calgary and Edmonton and everybody else. And nobody else could keep up to Calgary and Edmonton. And it is the reason why I'm not looking back in the Calgary video and saying, oh, I should have said I never cheered for Calgary either. No. Every Battle of Alberta, I was firmly a Flames fan. Absolutely. All right. Edmonton's biggest trades. The Edmonton Oilers on August 9th, 1988 traded Wayne Gretzky, Mike Krushelnyski, and Marty McSorley to LA for Jimmy Carson, Marty Gelinas, first-round choice which became Jason Miller, a first-round choice which became Martin Ruchinski, and first-round choice which became Nick Stajduhar, and $15 million. This was Peter Pocklington at his worst. The most important trade in history, and if not all sports, happened when the great one was sold by Oilers owner Peter Pocklington to Hollywood. And fuck him. And I say that knowing that every Oilers fan is saying it too. And I say it because, as a Canadian hockey fan, I mean, everybody says, oh, well, it was great that Gretzky was down in LA and whatever. But for me, that wasn't great. I think hockey would have been fine as it was in California. And hockey lost something when Gretzky got traded south of the border. Hockey in Canada did. Um, so as much as I was glad that my Canucks weren't going to get eliminated every year by the Oilers, and the Oilers kind of became also Rans a little bit in the playoffs, it sucked. I know the Oilers won a cup in 1990 after Gretzky left. Believe me, I know all about it. But that was the last hurrah. So, um, Edmonton had cemented its reputation as the city of champions, having won 4 Stanley Cups in the previous 5 years. Through it all, number 99 was generating offense at an unprecedented rate, winning the Art Ross trophies and becoming the only player ever to reach 200 points in a season. It'll never happen again. No one will ever hit 200 points again, ever. We're getting to the stage in hockey where Morning Fantasy can never hit 100 points again. But the relatively small city of Edmonton made the franchise subject to financial constraints that were unsustainable in the long term. That was Pocklington's doing. There's a lot of things with Pocklington. I watched some stuff on Pocklington, and after I heard some stuff about Pocklington, I actually honestly felt bad for Oilers fans for the first time ever. That was quite a while ago. Gretzky bid a tearful goodbye to his adopted home during a funereal. That sounds like venereal. I don't like that. During a depressing media conference. I'll go with depressing, just because I don't want to sound like venereal. Then prepared for the next chapter of his career in sunny California. The Oilers were able to add another championship to their dynasty in 1990 before dismantling of their core players continued. In Los Angeles, Gretzky led the Kings to a Stanley Cup Finals appearance in '93 where they lost to the Montreal Canadiens, and I was cheering for Montreal in that final. That's why I can't say I never cheered for Montreal, because I didn't want Gretzky to win a cup in LA. I didn't. Besides which, I didn't want them to knock out Toronto. I wanted Toronto and Montreal in the final that year. I was very upset Toronto didn't get in there. Anyways, Gretzky's presence south of the border exponentially increased interest in the sport in the United States, particularly in untapped regions. Within a few years of the trade, expansion franchises were granted to teams in California and Florida. So when you complain about a 30-team league, make sure you let Wayne Gretzky know that you think it sucks. An honorable mention. November 24th, 1987. Edmonton Oilers trade Paul Coffey, Dave Hunter, and Wayne Van Dorp to Pittsburgh for Craig Simpson, Dave Hannon, Mo Mantha, and Chris Joseph. The first blockbuster deal in Oilers history came as a result of a contract impasse between Paul Coffey and Edmonton general manager Glenn Sather. Coffey, then a 2-time Norris Trophy winner, wanted a salary equal to that of rival Boston's Ray Bourque, and he didn't deserve it. He scored a lot of points, but he was no Ray Bourque. No. And insisted that his contract be renegotiated to compensate for the disparity between Canadian and U.S. dollars. When Sather rebuffed those demands, Coffey held out for the first 23 games in the 87-88 season. The staring match finally ended in November. Coffey went on to earn 2 All-Star team nominations in 5 seasons in Pittsburgh and was a valuable member of the team's first ever Stanley Cup win in 1991. Craig Simpson lived up to lofty expectations of a second overall selection by the Penguins at the 1985 entry draft. He had a career-best 56 goals in the year of the trade and was part of 2 Stanley Cup titles for the Oilers. And when you hear Craig Simpson in the booth on Hockey Night in Canada, it's easy to forget that he had a pretty decent career. He flamed out pretty quick after those Stanley Cups in Edmonton. But, 56 goals in the season, and this is the 80s, so that's the equivalent of a 40-goal season now. It's nothing to sneeze at. So when you look at the Oilers, and you look in here, the bold type, that's the Stanley Cup. And look up top, look at all the out of the playoffs. It's sad. And it's part of the reason why right now I don't consider myself an Oilers hater. I don't. I'm trying to think of when exactly it started to turn around. It was when they hired Chiarelli. It is not easy being a general manager in the NHL, as I've stated many times. And Chiarelli was the most underappreciated GM I've seen. He GM'd the Boston Bruins to a Stanley Cup. And I don't care what happened after that. It's funny because if a player comes to a team and he wins you a Stanley Cup, it follows him. And you can say, well, this guy won a Stanley Cup. This guy's great. Like Vinny Cavalier, Eric Stahl, these kind of guys who achieved this great height, never quite got back to it, but they still have that on their resume. For a GM, whatever. You had nothing to do with it. It's players on the ice. Well, what about the fact he picked those players up? Anybody would have known to make those moves. Those trades were easy. Those draft picks, easy. That was just the easy stuff. He didn't do anything hard. Well, Chiarelli made a lot of difficult decisions as Boston Bruins GM. And when he got to Edmonton, and it was the first time I'd seen the Oilers do something that didn't rely on a former Oiler in a long time, I immediately approved. I didn't like how Boston got rid of Chiarelli. They wanted to fire him the year before they fired him, but they couldn't because the team went on a Stanley Cup Finals run. So they couldn't fire him after the team had been in the Stanley Cup Finals. And that, to me, just stinks. It's like, so it's just personal then. Because if he's GM and your team goes to the Stanley Cup, even if they don't win, but they're in the finals, you can't fire him. He's doing a good job. So now seeing where the Oilers are, and it's still early in the season. This is November 7th when I'm recording this. The Oilers are on the cusp here of something special. And it started with them winning the draft lottery. It started with them winning the McDavid lottery. And you can complain, and many Canadian fans do, that, it was all set up for the Oilers, whatever you want to say, just like it was all set up for the Leafs to get Matthews. I'm sure the NHL set it up so all the Canadian teams would suck last year because they wanted a really good rating for the draft lottery. I don't know. But in terms of McDavid falling to the Oilers, it's fine. It's the same as when Pittsburgh got Crosby, I was pissed. Because it's like, oh, okay, so Mario Lemieux and Sidney Crosby just happened to play for the same organization. Every time Pittsburgh needs to get bailed out, a franchise player, a generational talent, just falls into their lap. That was what I said when Crosby got drafted by Pittsburgh. So, these things happen. In terms of where the Oilers are now, I like them a lot. I like the Oilers a lot. I think that they have a damn good team. They have a smart GM, and I think the goaltending's working well. The offense is there. The young stars are there. And I think the defense is better than they're giving credit for. I think Adam Larson is a fine addition. I think people need to stop worrying about, we lost Hall. You lose Hall, but you gain Lucic and Puljujarvi. That's what's moved out of your roster and moved in. So, to me, I think it's a good trade-off, personally. But yeah, so the Oilers. And the Oilers, much like the Wings yesterday, I don't really need to go through who their all-time leading scorers are in their history. Gretzky, Messier, Curry, Coffey, Anderson. Ryan Smith would be in there. Arnott scored his points elsewhere. Simpson might be in there. It's a list of usual suspects, really, because that Oilers team in the 80s was so dominant. And for those of you who didn't see them play, it's too bad. It's the only way I can put it. I hated them. I hated them because they eliminated Vancouver numerous times. They took the Bruins out in the finals twice. The greatest heartbreak I had experienced in the finals was not the 88, The 88 finals with Boston and Edmonton, I expected Boston to go out. I thought 1990 was going to be different. I thought 1990 was a chance for Boston to redeem themselves, and I thought they had a really good chance to do it. And of course, it was Moog in net for Boston. You'll notice it was Moog that was in net for Dallas when Edmonton beat him. Edmonton had this affinity for beating on Andy Moog, and it drove me nuts because I liked Moog better than I liked Fuhr, and I've had that argument in videos before too, that I thought Moog overall in his career was a better goaltender than Grant Fuhr. At the very least, I don't understand why Moog's not in the Hall of Fame, but I digress. This is about the Oilers and with where they're headed. And I honestly see them in the playoffs. They may make it this year. I know at the time I'm recording this, they look really good to make it. There's no guarantee. Next year, I could pretty much book it. And next year, and then for at least, I would think the next 5-10 years, if McDavid's healthy and sticks around, and they can keep a good core around him. I know a lot of naysayers, a lot of fans of other Canadian teams will say, as soon as their entry level's up, they're going to be done in Edmonton. I don't think so. That new arena is going to make a huge difference. And I think there's a lot of jealousy from other teams where it comes to Connor McDavid. That's why there's a lot of negative things said about him and about the team. But they're a damn good team. And I haven't said that about the Oilers in over a decade. You could say maybe it's the curse of Chris Pronger. The Pronger left and the Oilers fell apart. But I cursed Chris Pronger a lot when he was an Oiler. There's a lot of Oilers I've cursed at over the years, and Pronger is definitely one of them. And when his wife decided she was too wussy to live in Edmonton and they had to move to California, I couldn't believe it. But anyways, that's another topic. Did the Oilers get back to the Stanley Cup? Are they, Canada's best chance for a Stanley Cup? No. That's still Montreal with Carey Price. Carey Price is capable of doing it. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Anyways, that's my opinion on the Oilers. This is my 30-plus minute ride, which has featured 5 different Oilers jerseys because I'm an insane, crazy person. And I turned my light on at one point in this video, too. I don't know if you're going to notice the lighting changed. It's one of those things. Anyways, I hope for Oilers fans, I've been as unbiased and as neutral as possible in my views on the Oilers. And I genuinely don't dislike the Oilers anymore. They're a team that was easy to hate in the 80s, but they're a team that's becoming one that's pretty easy to like in the current decade. What do we call it? The 10s? Anyways, except Lucic. I have disliked Lucic ever since he ran Ryan Miller as a Bruin. And I'm not a Ryan Miller fan in general. I wasn't then, and I'm still not a big fan of his, but the Lucic run in general just... And then the handshake lineup with Montreal, which is weird because I hate Montreal, and, I'm not happy seeing them eliminate Boston, but have some class. And those are 2 situations where I thought Lucic handled himself badly as a Bruin. So now that he's an Oiler, I'm not a big fan. But anyways, thanks for watching, and I will be back tomorrow with Florida. I only have 2 Florida jerseys, so I'm not a huge fan. This is getting to the point where I do have multiple jerseys of every team. 5 Oilers jerseys. 5. All right. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're an Oilers fan saying, why is a Canuck fan talking over a half an hour about my team and not cursing and swearing and laughing at us for the last 10 years? Hang around. Be a subscriber. And I should have the new webcam tomorrow. So Florida might be really crisp and clear, which is good because the new jersey is fantastic. All right. I'll talk to y'all again soon. Thanks for watching.